what's going on everybody? My name is Jay Cruz and welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to discuss how I use a guitar that I actually haven't used in a really long time, and that's the long lost J. Cruz Model T Guitar. Before we get started, you guys know the deal. Please like this video, subscribe, and comment below. Be sure to hit the bell icon so you get an alert every single time I upload a video. Without further ado, let's get started. More often than not, I am actually editing video stuff in the studio, more so than working on music, at least lately, because I've been working on this YouTube channel so much. I've also been helping out in other ventures with videography as a whole. So I find myself staring at my guitars through the corner of my eye, kind of looking over there and going, I haven't touched a guitar in a really long time. But one guitar that particularly stood out to me in regards to that was this guitar that's sitting on my lap right now. This guitar goes way back to April of 2015, and I was in the market at the time for a brand new guitar, but I didn't want any old guitar. And to be honest with you, most of the guitars that I was in love with were a little out of my personal price range. More specifically, I wanted a Nash Telecaster, and I couldn't afford it. So I ended up selling a lot of equipment, making some trades, making some deals to get rid of a lot of guitars so that I can fund a guitar purchase. And then I decided to do something kind of wacky, and that was to actually go for a guitar build. My dad, who lives in Florida and who already lived in Florida at that time, is a carpenter and is also a bass player, so he's a musician and has had some experience building and putting together instruments in the past. So I decided to consult with him, and we worked together with figuring out how I could possibly piece this guitar together. After a lot of planning and a lot of focus, I just dove right in and built this guitar that you see right in front of you. Believe it or not, on the first try. I was super skeptical if I could make it happen. There were certain things that I didn't trust myself in doing. For example, fretting the guitar neck and cutting out the neck slot. In fact, I've had some bad experiences with neck adjustments, or more specifically nut adjustments on the guitar neck. So it was definitely something that I wasn't interested in attempting all on my own. So I decided to outsource that kind of stuff. But for the most part, most of what you see on this guitar was actually put together by me. I didn't originally have this pickguard on here. In fact, I don't remember when I ended up changing it, but I think it was an aesthetic that I saw either on the Paler guitars or one of the Nash guitars where they had this kind of a pickguard on it. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to kind of mix the vintage and the modern thing together. And I've had it on ever since. Looking back, I wasn't trying to do anything that was too out of the ordinary. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. In fact, I was even scared to jump out of my comfort zone when it came to building a guitar. So for example, I decided to go with a more modern C-shaped neck, which was a little bit more of a flatter radius, very reminiscent on what you would find on a modern day Fender Telecaster. I also went with these locking tuners that I believe are made by Fender, but I've never seen them on a Fender guitar before, and they match the aesthetic quite nicely of this guitar. And I had to basically relic everything, even down to the hardware, to make this thing work, even to the point where I attempted to oxidize a lot of the hardware. And to be honest with you, I think it came out actually kind of cool. Probably the most expensive part of this guitar was the electronics of it all. I purchased some of my favorite pickups at the time, which were Porter Custom T pickups. Then I ended up purchasing the Emerson wiring kit, which absolutely enhanced the guitar's sound, but I had to actually reconfigure the whole guitar because I bought the wrong size. I had to basically make a ton of adjustments to actually retrofit it into this guitar. So this guitar has been with me through a lot, and it was my baby for a long time. In fact, all the way up until I eventually had to purchase the Nash T-52. There were multiple times throughout my career where I ended up selling equipment to fund a specific project, whether it was a guitar build or, for example, buying some studio equipment or just even working on a record, and I wanted to kind of get some equipment or specifically pay for it to be edited for me or mixed or mastered for me. So I've done that a couple of times, and I ended up selling a lot of equipment again to fund a studio project that I had a few years ago, and eventually sold almost every single guitar because I was so confident about this guitar that I didn't have any kind of backups at all. Long story short, I got booked for a series of events, and I was super busy, and this guitar basically conked out on me, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It ended up being a very small issue, but it kind of expensive, where the pickup fried out on me and I had to replace the bridge pickup itself. Anyway, I ended up not having a guitar for myself that weekend, and I thought one of two things: I can either fix this thing really quickly on the fly and then kind of worry about it, or I can go out and at least see my options for an additional guitar. My wife was actually kind of upset with me when she found out that I sold all of my guitar gear. She was like, just use another guitar. And I said, babe, I sold everything. And she was really mad, because we are really big on having backups for all of our equipment. We have backups for camera gear, backup for lighting, we have backup guitars, backup instruments. You know, you get it. Things happen, and you got to make sure that you're ready for the inevitable or the unpredictable. So my family and I took a trip to one of my favorite guitar shops from where I grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where they sold vintage guitars. And there it was, this beautiful Nash T-52 guitar with a Bigsby on it. I actually played it a year prior, fell in love with it, and thought, I can't afford this, and put it down. And then I also saw it multiple times on Reverb and thought, man, this is way out of my price range. I can't afford it. We went there, negotiated the price. I actually traded in my Fender Reverb Deluxe to help bring that price down, and I walked out of that store with a Nash T-52. And I have to admit, the only other time I think I picked this guitar up was when I repaired it myself and eventually replaced the pickup. And I left it there, sitting there, and I realized it's been years. Like years. Now you have to understand something. The Nash T-52 is pretty much my dream guitar. I've said it on this channel before. If someone had asked me to build my dream guitar, and it's my favorite guitar, or even a guitar that represented me as a guitarist, like if a company were actually interested in running a series of guitars made after me and like my specs and everything, it would be the Nash T-52. It wouldn't be anything different. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Maybe the colors, but other than that, the guitar is exactly how I want it. As I was staring at my guitars, I really missed this guitar, and I wanted to pick it up and see what it felt like. And as I picked it up, it reminded me of certain things and certain components that I had been kind of forgot about, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to this guitar build. Like, for example, my photo or a picture of me being on the back of the plate, the neck plate here, or all of the relicking that was done to this guitar very strategically. In fact, a funny story, like imagine building a guitar body and having it and then deciding you're gonna wreck it. Like, it was very odd to do that, but at the very end of it all, I really felt like it came out exactly how I pictured it in my head. It was around the time where I eventually switched to this guitar that I really started honing in and finding my tone, that J. Cruz sound that you know of today, the sound that you hear on this channel on a weekly basis. That's the sound that was created and cultivated using this very guitar right here. I was booked for a ton of gigs and guitar sessions because they heard me on this very guitar. Everything that I've built was centered around this very guitar. So I want to do something interesting today. I want to compare this guitar with my Nash T-52, tell you what I feel the differences are, and then you could determine in the comment section if you feel one is better than the other, or maybe they both serve a really good purpose, or maybe they sound identical. Let's find out. So I'm going to play through my normal rig here, the HX Stomp, but I'm not going to have any delays or reverb on. And I'm going to start off on the neck pickup, and we'll play the same thing, or at least I'll try to play the same thing on this guitar that I will on the Nash T-52 later on in the video. So let's start with the neck pickup. Now the middle. And the bridge. So quick little thoughts on this guitar so far. It's actually a little bit quirky throughout the years, and it took a lot of damage, and of course I played a lot of hours on here, and I probably could have done a little bit better of a job keeping up with the maintenance on this guitar, but the Bigsby started kind of falling apart on me. I've made some repairs recently to it, and just the quirkiness of just how the guitar was eventually reacting. I know that I was a first-time builder when attempting to build this guitar, so I know that it could have been done better, hands down. However, this guitar was really, really awesome to me, and I have to be honest, I think I mistakenly built a really decent guitar. I don't know that I could do it again and replicate it again. I think I just happened upon it. I did make some mistakes along the way where I had to readjust the position of the bridge plate a few times because the E string was set too low and it would slip off of the neck. So I did make mistakes, but ultimately I think it came out really, really great, and I think it sounds really great too. It is a little bit rough around the edges, but in the way that I liked at the time. It made me fight a little bit, but at the same time it felt good to play. I got a lot of compliments on this guitar, and specifically guitarists who tried it were always in love with it, and I had gotten asked to make them guitars just like this one multiple times. I just honestly didn't feel comfortable doing that because I'm not a guitar builder, but I think I did something special with this guitar, so I actually miss it. I think it sounds fantastic. But now, of course, for comparison purposes, let's switch back to my Nash T-52 so that we could hear what that sounds like going through the exact same rig. So immediately just picking the guitar up, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is just how much like heavier the guitar is. But the guitar comparatively is a lot thicker. It's got a lot more wood on it. The neck is fatter. So all of that makes a difference in my opinion. We can talk about tone wood all day long, but at the end of the day, more wood usually equals a different sound regardless of the type of wood. We can argue if it makes a difference or not, but I do think it makes a difference. At the very least, the amount of wood that is on a guitar, and this is just a much heavier guitar. Now touching the neck immediately, I feel at home, but I also feel at home with that guitar because I used it for so many years. But since I've been using this one a lot more recently, I feel a lot more comfortable on the thicker style neck. When I was younger, I used to desire the opposite. I was the guy who was like, give me that Ibanez flat neck thing. I want to, shred all day long. As I got older, I wanted something to grab onto, and these kind of thick profile necks really make a difference for me personally. As you guys know, in one of my latest videos, I talk about the Strat that I have here that has the same kind of profile neck, and that's why I fell in love with it, because it felt familiar, it felt great. So let's quickly run through some of the tones here, just like we did with my Cruz Model T. We'll start with the neck pickup. The middle. And now the bridge. Quickly, so you don't have to do a ton of rewinding and fast forwarding, let me show you some of those clips back to back so that you could hear the differences between both guitars. So I have a clear preference here, and obviously it's the Nash T-52. It's been a guitar that's been so good to me, and as I said already before, it's my dream guitar. So this is the guitar that I have thought about for years before I even purchased it, and when I finally got one, I don't know, there was a sense of accomplishment, a sense of like, I could only imagine and compare it to someone who maybe finishes like a marathon or something, because it just felt like I accomplished something really major in my career, being able to buy a guitar of that financial status, I guess you could say. Not that money represents anything, but just to be able to have this particular guitar like I always wanted was a really, honestly, a dream come true for me. Let's talk about the differences and what I heard and what I felt using both guitars. So I should mention that a first-time guitar builder comparing a guitar that is a boutique guitar is not really fair, but I do think that there are some great things about both guitars. The J. Cruz Model T is a great guitar, just, you know, obviously it just doesn't compare to a guitar like this one, but I love that guitar. It feels great. Obviously it's familiar to me because I used it for such a long time. I still get great tones out of it, so that's one thing that you can't deny, or at least I can't deny, that I get great Telecaster style tones on it, and it was probably the best Telecaster that I had ever used up until that point. So for me, it did a really amazing job. The Nash T-52 definitely edges that guitar out by a great deal. It just is perfect in every kind of way. The stabilization of the setup, the neck profile, the way the strings react with the body, the way the Bigsby is set up, everything about it is just absolutely great. I haven't had any kind of intonation issues that I would have with that J. Cruz Model T guitar, probably because it's not built perfectly, and I probably am off with something which ultimately affects the intonation long term, unlike the tediousness of the Nash folks who probably built this thing to absolute perfection. Now let's talk about the tones. As I said, though they both sound like Telecasters to me, they sound different for obvious reasons. Not because one is better than the other, but because I think that because one is thicker, bigger of a guitar, you're going to have a bigger, thicker tone and sound. There are also different pickups, mind you. One has Lawler pickups, which is the T-52, and the J. Cruz Model T has Porter pickups. Both pickups kind of went after the same deal in terms of voicing, but in my opinion, these pickups sound amazing, and definitely they won me over when it comes to Telecaster pickups. I love how on both guitars, I feel like every pickup position is usable. I would use all three pickup positions all of the time, but I find myself getting a lot more definition and clarity out of the Nash T-52, even though it's a little more depth. It has more body to it, so it has a bigger sound, but it still hits the mid-range frequency that you want your Telecaster to hit. The J. Cruz T-52 does that, but it certainly doesn't do it like the Nash T-52 does. Well, that's pretty much it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, but do me a favor, if you are a Telecaster user, let me know which model Telecaster you're currently using and why, and do you have a dream Telecaster if it's not the one that you're currently using right now. Let me know your thoughts. I want to read all of your comments and respond. Please do all of the things that help this channel grow, like this video, subscribe and comment below, and hit the bell icon so you get an alert every single time I upload a video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.